And Madeline, you're just a rising star in Hollywood and signed on to be a part of this project. But I think this was more than just a role for you. This was personal because you're a believer in Christ and brought up in a strong Christian home. And would love to talk and hear a little bit of your story that kind of prepared you for this role, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would love to share. So one of the things I'm grateful for with Imagine is I've gotten the chance to share my testimony, which, to be honest, but it's how God works, I never ever thought that it would touch or, reach anyone. I just thought it was, what God did for me, and that's amazing, and that's great in my life, but I didn't think that it would really speak to anyone else. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity to do this because just like dreams coming true this year. So basically I started off at 3.5 years old acting. God literally put me on the path. It was nothing that, I pursued at 3 or that my mom pursued for me. And I just so happened to be at a nail salon in Sherman Oaks in LA. It's where I'm from. And thanks. LA. And so I was there, and the salon chair I was in just so happened to literally be back to back to a talent agent. And I'm talking and, going on, and this woman hears me, and she thinks I'm 7 years old. She comes around the corner, and I'm 3. She's like, can't believe it, but despite all odds, she still wanted to see me, even though they only accept kids like 6, 7, and up. So I go there. She ends up signing me, and it just like started this whole thing. It's literally all that I've known. It's all that I've ever done, and I just loved it. I loved it so much, and always had a deep relationship with God growing up. I created my own, discovered my own personal relationship with God when I was 9 years old. I always went to church, but really started reading my Bible and everything at that age. So spiritual things were happening in my life, along with like doing TV and commercials, and then just working so much. God just kept opening doors for me. And so I really wasn't used to anything else. I didn't know that it was such a struggle because God's favor was just immense at that time in my life. And so I hit 11, I did my first lead role in a movie called Swing Vote with Kevin Costner, which was like a whole miracle in itself, that I even got the role. My mom prayed 7 times around the casting office, like the walls of Jericho, for real. And so thankful for my mama. And I just kept working. And right at the time that movie came out, a lot of stuff was happening for me. They actually were going to campaign for me to get an Oscar and all this stuff, which was really cool. But it just opened a lot of doors. So I get a call from this director. My mom actually got a call from this director to be in his next superhero movie. So it's kind of like the Marvel of that time. This was before Marvel. This is the big deal. And I get this. They just want to offer me this part. Didn't even want to read me. Didn't want to see me. They just wanted to give it to me, which is insane. That's completely crazy. So I thought it was God. I was like, this must be the Lord. This has to be God. So I talked to the director, love it, can't believe I'm going to learn martial arts, learn how to do butterfly knives, all this stuff. It's going to be amazing. And it was literally God laid before me fame, fortune, and an easy setup the rest of my life. I was getting two movies to myself after that one, and just getting ridiculous money. And I just knew there's certain scripts that come across your way that you're like, well, this is going to be an overnight life changer. And then there's ones that you do that just because you want to do them, but there's ones that really stand out, and my life's going to be changed. So I read it. It was really, really dirty script, and the character that I would play was really dirty. But I was like, God, this has to be you. This fell on my lap. This is how the devil tempts you. And I was like, this has to be God. And so me and my mom prayed about it, and we asked them would it be possible for you to change the language? Can you just remove my parts of the movie that are wrong? And they were like, yeah, sure, we just want you. So it's favor of God. I'm like, oh my goodness, these huge studio people are willing to do whatever we're asking. And so I ended up signing on. I literally go meet everybody at the studio, signing, gonna do papers and contracts and everything, and literally, I'm not joking, that night I go to a healing service at my church, a worship service, and out of the full congregation, the pastor calls me up to come pray for a little boy to receive hearing. So I go up and I pray and I lay hands on him, and I come back to my seat and I look at my mom and I said, Mom, I can't do this movie. And she's like, oh, thank God, why? And she didn't have a good feeling about it. And I said, because it's not going to line up with who I'm called to be in God. It's not going to line up with what he wants of me. Thank you. And so I did that, made that choice, and of course, you know, everyone on my team's like, you're crazy, like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're set up for life. And they were right, because the girl who did it and the girl who ended up doing the part went on to get everything, went on to be famous overnight, went on to do, you know, mega movies, huge movies. So I was like, Lord, like, what? Okay, so I gave that up for you, like, what's happening? And then literally, like, 2 years later, I got a movie called Flipped, directed by Rob Reiner. Oh my gosh, you guys saw it? That's awesome. So proud of that movie. So anyway, that's awesome. So anyway, God was truly a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. He rewarded me for that, and he continued to reward me for that. And then I hit 15, and everything changed. I was no longer, you know, getting these clean-cut, edifying roles. I began to get, you know, sent these parts where I would have to do things that I didn't want to do. So that became a struggle. That became, I'm at like the peak of my career, everything's happening for me, doing a bunch of films, and then it just all stopped. And all these roles were just so incredibly dirty. So I began like this journey of a really, really hard struggle with God. Really, really hard decisions. Being tempted left and right. Being offered all kinds of parts and shows that I didn't want to do. I ended up on a show, but a few episodes into this show, they wanted me to do something that I wasn't comfortable with. And I was literally on my way to church, and I read this script, and I like had my mom pull over. I throw open the door and I start throwing up outside the car. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe what I'm reading. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And I was like, God, like I'm panicking, because in TV you're under contract. So you can't get out of it. Like, you literally can't get out of it. You're forced to do it. So I'm like roaring and crying, and I said, you know what, I gotta pray. I said, God, you have allowed me to dodge landmines my full career. There's no way that you would get me to this place that I'm legally bound and there's nothing I can do. Like, that's just not who you are. So I said, God, somehow, some way, I'm not gonna be upset about this anymore. I said, you're gonna turn this around, and matter of fact, you're gonna somehow glorify yourself in it and get me out of this. So I gave him like this whole instruction. I'm not kidding you. It was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, because one of my friends is who got me the part on the show, one of the producers. So I'm mortified because now his, you know, neck's in the news for getting me on the show and causing all this. So despite all that fear and anxiety, you know, things like that, they can kind of corner you and make you think, you know, I have to do something, like there's a gun to your head. But I knew who God was, and I knew that God was bigger than what was going on in the natural. And so I said, you know, I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's just, there's nothing else I can say other than I can't do this. Please don't make me do this. And I'm not joking with you. Instead of being upset, instead of being angry, I got called 20 times this one day by this number that I didn't know, and I don't answer numbers I don't know. And they called me. Finally, they start calling my house phone, so I answer, and I'm like, hello? It is the lead actress on the show, whose show it is, who's, you know, crazy big, and I'm like, can't believe it. I'm like, oh, hi, and I think that they're gonna yell at me. And they literally said to me, I just want you to know that it has spoke so much to so many of us over here. And we can't believe, especially me, I can't believe this choice that you've made, because there are things that I wish that I could take back in my career that I'm not able to take back now. And I didn't have the boldness that you had. And I didn't see God that way. But I just want you to know that don't feel ashamed and don't feel like you made a wrong decision, because God is your casting director. God is your director, and God is your producer. And so God just really showed up and showed out and glorified himself in that. And so that was a one piece of this really hard journey that I went through with God. And finally, this time last year, I was completely broken. I was so depressed. I was like just seeing all this opposition all the time, and these dirty parts and these things that, you know, I don't even want to do. And I was devastated. And I said, God, I don't understand. Do you not want this of me anymore? Is this no longer the dream that you have for me anymore? And I said, God, I love this. This is what I love to do. But God, if you're no longer calling me here, I love you more than I love this. And I laid it before God and I let it die. I said, here it is. I don't care for it. I just want to serve you. And God, I miss your presence, Lord. And if this isn't what you have of me, I don't want to go one more day feeling this confusion. I don't want to go one more day having this fear and anxiety. And I said, God, if I'm still meant to be here, send me something, Lord. And I said, better yet, send me something that would edify you. And I'm not kidding. The next day, I get a call from a director who remembered me a year prior, coming in and auditioning for him in the midst of my depression. And he saw something in me, which was the Lord, and remembered me a year later. So literally, God answered my prayer the next day. And then from there, I give my testimony to him and to this director, and he got re-saved and just couldn't believe everything that God did. And 2 months later, I'm at a separate audition for something else. This woman who just so happened to get paired up with me to be my mom knew who I was, knew that I was a believer, and said, you need to go out on that new movie, I Can Only Imagine. And I said, like the song? And she was like, yes, like the song. I knew, we all know the song, we love the song. I was like, this is gonna be powerful. I called my manager, and I said, you gotta get me in for this show, for this movie. And it just so happened, the way that the timing worked out, I was actually coming back to LA. And so they had been reading people, they had seen people, but the timing of it just worked out to where I came in for just a meet and greet with them. So that's kind of a rare thing in itself. Normally you just go in and you audition. But God allowed me to go in and talk with John and Andy and Kevin for an hour about God. They saw my heart for him before they saw me as an actress. Yeah. And that is what set me apart. That. And so whatever you are called to do, whatever it is, the thing that sets you apart, everyone in this room, is God has put himself inside of you and is calling it out. God is calling it out, and that's what he did for me. And that's why I'm here. And there's things that I prayed for at 10 years old coming to fruition into my life today. This is the God that we serve. And I just want to say, when you stand true to your conviction and your morals, that is your compass to your soul. And so you have to, even when it's hard, Isaiah 54:17 is one of my favorite verses, and it says, the heritage of the servants of the Lord is triumph over opposition. And I stand on that verse all the time, because I am called to a place that literally is Sodom and Gomorrah. I am surrounded by opposition 24/7. I am more familiar with being rejected than I am accepted. I am more familiar with being judged than loved. And so I just want you to know that God is able, and God is the all-triumphant God, and he is the God El Roy. He sees you. He sees you exactly where you are. And it is a miracle. My life is a living testimony miracle of who he is and what he is able to do. Sorry.
Come on.
Long answer.
Amazing. Bart and I will just be, because that's incredible. Gosh.